Hi, we're detectives. Today we're going to read a story called 10th Avenue Cowboy. And this story is based on truth. And I had no idea that there were 10th Avenue Cowboys right in New York City. So this was something that I learned that was new and very interesting. 10th Avenue Cowboy, written by Linda Oatman High, illustrated by Bill Farnsworth. This book was published by Eerdmans Books for Young Readers. For Janet, my gratitude to our friendship that never ends, and for the suggestion that we go visit Bill in Venice that October day. Blue sky, yellow sun, red convertible jag, and now a book. You are still little but mighty, my longtime friend, and for my parents who tolerated the cowgirl in me. Thanks for the horses. LOH. I believe that would be Linda Oatman High. For Chuck, Bill Farnsworth, BF. So look at the city and the river. It was 1910 when Bill and his family left their ranch in the West and took the train to New York City, where they'd heard the work and pay were the best. Papa got a job in Hell's Kitchen section of New York, working in a blacksmith shop. Ben didn't like Hell's Kitchen. He didn't like the city smells or the crowded sounds or the brownstone tenement apartment. The tough boys of the neighborhood made fun of Ben's Western accent, and they called him a sissy. Some of the girls bullied him too, because Ben was so quiet. Ben wished that he fit in. He wished for a friend. Have you ever felt that way, wishing that you fit in? Ben missed his home and the great plains of the West. He missed the bridges and rivers and the grass prairies, but most of all, Ben missed the cowboys. Ben dreamed of being a cowboy. He wanted to wear chaps and hats and bandanas and spurs. He longed to ride high and gallant on a galloping horse. Wow, look at those cowboys go. Ben no longer had a horse, though. His family had left their horses at the ranch when they moved to New York City. But Ben watched the horses in the city and in the blacksmith shop. He studied the horses that pulled the ice wagons and the horses hitched to fancy carriages. Then one day, Ben heard about the 10th Avenue Cowboys, whose job it was to ride before the train to warn people of its approach. Ben couldn't believe it. There were cowboys in the city? Look at this. And there's the train. Many times, day or night, a horse would charge down 10th Avenue, where railroad tracks were set into the cobblestones of the city street. Hooves sparking and manes whipping in the wind, the horse would gallop with the 10th Avenue cowboy, riding fearless and tall in the saddle. In a city canyon with brownstone buildings for mountains, the city cowboys rode, carrying flags in the daytime and red lanterns at night. Look at the railroad tracks are going right down the middle of the city street. And look, their metal hooves are sparking on the cobblestones. One day, a 10th Avenue cowboy brought his horse into Papa's shop for new shoes. The cowboy, Johnny, told Ben about the pebble yard on 10th Avenue and 30th Street, where the cowboys put up their feet, waiting for the train whistles to blow. Johnny told Ben about the stable on 37th Street, where the cowboys took the horses at the end of their rides. Johnny invited Ben to visit the horses with him. After that, Ben was at the stable every day, bringing treats for the horses. He adored them all. These pictures are beautiful, aren't they? Do you recognize this hat? Oh, I recognize it. It's the boss of the plains. It's a Stetson. Johnny took Ben to the pebble yard one afternoon. The cowboys were playing cards to pass the time. Ben asked him if he could ride a horse. Johnny let Ben try on his cowboy hat. It was much too large, but Ben loved the feel of the soft brim against his ears. These are really beautiful pictures from Mr. Farnsworth, aren't they? Time for a ride, Johnny said when it was time for his shift to begin. Sitting high in the saddle, Ben felt as if he were on top of the world. It must have felt good for Ben after not having been on a horse for so long. Whoa, look at the joy on his face. Ben took a deep breath. He whooped as the horse galloped mightily down 10th Avenue. The train hooted from far down the tracks, and the horse's back rippled. Wow. Holding on with all his might, Ben rode fast into a city canyon with brownstone buildings for mountains. People watched in wonder as the horses thundered by, galloping fast, bolting past the clamoring locomotive. Ben glanced at the children, and they were cheering for him, amazed that he was riding with a 10th Avenue cowboy. Ooh. Ben closed his eyes for a moment, and he saw the great plains of the West, bridges and rivers and prairies of grass. He opened his eyes, and there was the usual sights of tenements and factories and the crowded city street. Ben heard Johnny's voice above the noise. Soon you'll be a 10th Avenue cowboy, too. Then magic happened. Ben's white horse seemed to glow in the moonlight, and the city felt warm and familiar. Hell's Kitchen looked like heaven to Ben. Oh, look, he's dreaming about the past, but living in the future, or living in the present, I should say. 10 years later, Johnny looked about the same, except for a few more lines on his face. But Ben had grown up, and the city was now his home. Hmm. And you better believe it, that Ben did turn into a 10th Avenue cowboy. So he managed to live out his dream. I love that. Here's a note from the author, Linda Oatman High. The 10th Avenue Cowboys were legendary figures in Hell's Kitchen, where they rode their horses to warn of the approaching trains until the early 1930s. The Cowboys gave city youngsters a thrill of the West, and the children of Hell's Kitchen admired those who rode high and gallant on the galloping horses. Many children longed to be a cowboy themselves one day, and some of them succeeded. Linda Oatman High. Here's a glossary of words that might not have been familiar to you. Hell's Kitchen. That was a poor area of New York City known in the 1900s for violence and general disorder. Not a happy place to live, I think. Brownstone tenement building. An apartment building used to house large numbers of low income families. Kind of like projects, I guess, from back then. Gallant. That means splendid or brave. Chaps. Those are protective leather pants that cowboys wear over their trousers. Do you know the word trousers? You might call them pants. Blacksmith. A person who makes objects out of iron or steel, like horseshoes. Cobblestone. The type of stone frequently used in the pavement of early streets. Cobblestones actually look like bricks and were often made out of granite. Locomotive. That's a railway train. I hope you enjoyed this book about the 10th Avenue Cowboys and learned a little something like I did. Catch you on the next book. Bye, everybody.